Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unpack the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from a stack of sources crafted just for you. Today, we're plunging into, well, a fascinating and sometimes pretty controversial corner of the entertainment world. So let's set the scene. Picture this moment from Amazon's Rings of Power. You've got Galadriel, the formidable elf warrior, facing off against Sauron, but he's in his handsome elf disguise, Anatar.
Right, that charming form.
Exactly. They're up high on this rocky outcrop. The tension's supposed to be immense. Sauron offers his hand, trying to tempt her over to the dark side, his voice all smooth. And Galadriel, she just frowns, classic Galadriel, defiant, and then jumps off the rock.
Just leaps.
Right. Now, here's the kicker. For a scene that seems intended to be incredibly dramatic, our source's reaction was, and I'm quoting here, "It makes me laugh."
Laugh.
Yeah, it makes the author want to write fanfiction romantasy. That's not quite the reaction you'd expect, is it?
No, not at all. And it highlights this really interesting paradox, doesn't it? You've got Galadriel, this icon of solemnity and ancient power in Tolkien's world.
Totally.
And Sauron, the embodiment of pure evil. Yet, like our source points out, this supposedly crucial moment just does not feel serious.
Yeah.
Well, it makes you wonder why. Why is there this disconnect between the intended weight and how, well, at least some people perceive it?
And that right there is our mission for this deep dive. We're going to use this specific scene to unpack something much bigger, a huge, genuinely best-selling genre that's making waves.
Romantasy?
Exactly, and how it's interacting, maybe even clashing with these big, established, classic franchises. So we'll be digging into an analysis of Rings of Power, its creative choices, all viewed through this particular lens. Let's get into what the source has to say. Okay, so let's unpack this. The source comes out swinging, pretty blunt about Rings of Power. They say, quote, "The fandom menace will say it's because ROP is fan fiction. They're right. It's fan fiction done wrong."
Oof. Strong words.
Yeah. And for anyone maybe not deep in the fan forums, the fandom menace is often that vocal group, very protective of the original lore, often critical of adaptations. So when the source says fan fiction done wrong, what's the actual problem they're pointing to? What makes it wrong for them?
Well, it's interesting. The source isn't necessarily saying fan fiction itself is bad. It can be a really creative space.
Yeah, definitely.
But the critique here is about how it's being done within this massive established IP. They argue that let's say, the idea of a Galadriel and Sauron-Anatar dynamic has huge potential.
Ripe for fan fiction picking, as they put it?
Exactly. But the execution in the show feels fumbled, according to them. That scene we talked about, the confrontation, the source suggests it doesn't feel serious because maybe the character motivations or the build-up or even the dialogue just doesn't land with the kind of emotional punch that fans of, well, this specific kind of dynamic expect.
So it's like they're borrowing the tropes but not fully committing.
That seems to be the argument. Trying to tap into fan fiction ideas, but maybe not delivering them in a way that feels, authentic or satisfying within the show's own context.
Okay, so that leads us straight to, what kind of fan fiction are we talking about here? When they say ripe for picking, is it just general fanfic or something more specific that's really popular right now?
Oh, it's very specific. This is where Romantasy enters the picture. And this genre, it's just exploded in popularity over the last, say, decade or so.
Right, you see it everywhere.
Absolutely. Romantasy, like the name suggests, blends romance and fantasy pretty much equally. The romance isn't just a side plot. It's central, often driving the whole story, just as much as the magic or the world building.
Okay.
And the source specifically pegs it as a genre for millennial women who grew up on Twilight and Harry Potter.
Yeah.
The idea is, as they got older, they wanted more spice or erotica mixed into their fantasy read.
Ah, okay. The spice factor.
Exactly. And crucially, Romantasy is, as the source says, steeped in fan fiction. It borrows heavily from fanfic communities, the tropes they love, the character dynamics people write about endlessly online. It kind of grew out of that desire for something specific the mainstream wasn't quite providing.
So it's more than just books. It's like a whole cultural thing tied to a specific audience and what they've been asking for. And the source lays out this classic romantasy setup, right? It's about
bitter rivals in forever confrontations, steeped in sexual tension. That's the quote.
Yeah. And the core of it is this classic Byronic romance. The bad boy versus strong-willed, no-nonsense young woman locked in war and sexual tension that breaks them into ecstasy. That sounds intense.
It is. And that dynamic is absolutely key to the appeal. You have the Byronic hero, moody, maybe morally gray, intense.
Brooding.
Totally brooding, paired with a strong heroine who pushes back. The war isn't just fighting monsters, it's often internal, attraction versus hate, duty versus desire. It's compelling stuff.
And the source gives examples from fan fiction that fit this perfectly.
Oh yeah, really clear ones that show how common this is. They mention Rilo, that's Rey and Kylo Ren from Star Wars. Massive pairing, classic era villain tension there.
Right, I've seen that one around.
And Dryamon, Draco Malfoy, and Hermione Granger from Harry Potter. Again, rivals, enemies, but with that underlying tension people love to explore.
Interesting.
They even bring up Osha and Kemir from Rings of Power itself, saying they were clearly written for this reason. So the source sees the show trying to use these romantasy tropes, even if they think the main Galadriel-Sauron plot didn't quite nail it.
So the appeal of that specific dynamic, the Byronic thing, is huge in fandom and really fuels this whole genre.
Definitely. It's a powerful driver.
But then the source broadens the critique, doesn't just stick to Rob Key. They look at Disney, Amazon Studios, and say they've screwed themselves over. That sounds serious. How so?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting and, frankly, a bit controversial. The source's argument is that these big studios tried to capture lightning in a bottle. They took Romantasy, the #1 best-selling genre, and essentially trapped it inside their existing IP canon.
Meaning they tried to jam romantasy themes into Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, places like that.
Pretty much. Trying to force romantasy tropes, character types, the romance focus onto these huge franchises that, well, weren't built for it originally. And the problem, according to the source, is that this creates a massive bind because they can't really go full romantasy.
Yeah.
They can't deliver the intense focus on romance or the spice or the specific emotional beats romantasy fans crave without breaking the established rules, the tone, the lore of something like Middle-earth or the Star Wars galaxy.
You'd alienate the original fans.
Exactly. But by not going all the way, they also don't fully satisfy the romantasy audience they're trying to attract. So the source argues they end up in this awkward middle ground, potentially alienating the few viewers they have left because the final product doesn't fully commit to either vision. It's a narrative straitjacket.
And this ties into an even bigger, maybe more loading claim they make, that this whole romanticization thing is an unintended fallout of feminizing classic speculative franchises like Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. What exactly does the source mean by feminizing there?
This is probably the most contentious part of their analysis. The source explicitly says this effort to feminize masculine franchises, which they frame as a kind of deconstructivism of white maleness, basically taking apart traditional male-centric stories, is a condescending financial mistake.
Wow. Okay.
Their argument is that these franchises historically appeal to a certain audience, largely male, who love the lore, the tech, the big battles, the classic hero journeys. They even cite supposed survey data suggesting the audience for these IPs is largely upwards of 70% male.
So the claim is, by trying to bring in romantasy elements to appeal more to women,
they pushed away the original loyal male audience. But because they couldn't fully commit to the romantasy elements due to the IP constraints, they didn't really capture the new female audience either. So it ends up pleasing, well, potentially no one fully. That's the core of their critique, that specific strategy.
It's crucial to point out, though, that the source author isn't actually against romantasy itself. They say they have bicameral taste. They like the technical and bureaucratic nature of masculine SFF and the romance and frivolity of the feminine genres.
Absolutely. They're not dismissing the genre at all.
In fact, they name a favorite, Anne Bishop's The Black Jewel series, calling it the mother of romantasy genre.
Right.
So the issue isn't the genre, it's how it's being applied, right?
Exactly. That nuance is important. They clearly enjoy romantasy as a reader. The critique is aimed squarely at the studio strategy. Their main point seems to be, and again I'm paraphrasing their view, that they just don't like the overlap of genres and audiences that appeal to no one.
This forced blending.
Right. Trying to make one thing fit into another where it doesn't naturally belong, creating something diluted that satisfies neither the original fans nor the target new audience. They seem to advocate for respecting what makes each genre distinct.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? If the source believes women typically don't care about Star Trek, Star Wars, or Lord of the Rings, which is a big generalization in itself, but let's stick to their argument.
A very big generalization, yes.
But if they argue that, and women do clearly care about romantasy, what should studios be doing instead, according to the source?
Well, the source proposes a pretty straightforward alternative. Instead of trying to retrofit existing male-centric franchises, they argue for bringing female-friendly IPs to the screen.
Meaning,
Adapting books and series that are already successful within the romantasy genre, properties that already have that built-in female audience, and are designed with those romance and fantasy elements intertwined from the start.
adapt the stuff that's already working in that space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Respect the source material and the audience that loves it. Don't try to force it onto something else.
And they give examples of this working, right? Like Outlander.
Yes, the Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon. Huge historical romance hit with fantasy elements. The source says it worked as a TV adaptation, found its audience.
And there's a fascinating connection mentioned. The Outlander showrunners were apparently linked at some point to adapting ACOTAR.
Right, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. And Maas is basically, as the source puts it, considered the godmother of romantasy genre.
So having people who successfully adapted Outlander potentially tackle ACOTAR, that suggests the industry is learning, maybe?
It certainly suggests an understanding, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That if you want to make successful romantasy TV, maybe hire people who've proven they get female-centric romance adaptations. It's about matching the creative team to the material.
Makes sense.
And it's not just Outlander. The source notes Amazon picked up Rebecca Yaros's Empyrean series that includes Fourth Wing, which was, insanely huge recently.
Yeah, Fourth Wing was everywhere.
Massive bestseller, huge online buzz. And then there's Shadow and Bone on Netflix. It had a couple of seasons, and the source calls it perhaps the best test run for the modern crop of romantasy series to screen.
So there are models out there showing that adapting actual romantasy IPs can work.
That seems to be the source's point. Focus on the properties that organically fit the genre and its audience instead of trying to awkwardly smash different things together.
Okay, so quite a journey. We started with that one scene in Rings of Power, Galadriel jumping off a rock, and our source laughing.
Which felt so counterintuitive.
Right. And from there, we really dove into this massive genre. Romantasy, what it is, who it's for, what makes it tick.
The Byronic heroes, the tension, the spice.
Exactly. And then we looked at this source's, pretty sharp critique of how big studios are trying to handle it, this idea of blending it with classic SFF franchises and the potential pitfalls of that strategy.
Yeah, that central tension is really the key takeaway, isn't it? The challenge of mixing these traditionally, maybe stereotypically masculine and feminine genres. And the source's argument that the current attempts often lead to this overlap that, in their words, appeals to no one.
It raises big questions about whether you can effectively serve both audiences simultaneously within the same IP, or if it's better to cater to them separately, more authentically.
Right. Is it always a compromise that weakens the whole?
So thinking about this, romantasy is undeniably huge, a commercial powerhouse on its own, and we have these strong critiques about trying to integrate it into franchises like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. What does this signal for the future of genre storytelling?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Is it always going to be this zero-sum game, where appealing to one demographic means alienating another? Or could there be smarter ways, maybe unexplored paths, for successful crossover that honors different genre appeals without just watering them down? What stands out to you, listening to this, about where things might be headed?